So yesterday and from time to time mentioned this word signs. Signs, the Pali word nimitta, signs. And this is of some significance, considerable significance. Nibbana is the signless, well, that's not the only one, but that signs, signless. So what is a sign? What's it mean, nimitta? And by and large, if you look at the word, you'll probably find a lot of it seems to refer to subtle phenomena, quasi-visual phenomena that can occur in meditation. Little lights and things like that. They indicate, what stage of realization you're at, or what degree of samadhi you're at, or something like that. And this is a sort of a fairly well testified, but it's not something the Buddha seems to have talked about, or used that word in the suttas, in the original teachings. That comes from somewhat later meditation tradition. So the original concept, I'll use the word, is just a mark. And so, for example, we have nimitta stones around this hall, which indicates this is the mark. This means this is the consecrated area. These define it. It says, the mark, the nimitta of a man or a woman, means you say a certain characteristic. Oh, that's a man, that's a woman. You immediately get it. It's a sign. Interpret body shape or something. And then it's also said greed is a nimitta, hatred is a nimitta, delusion is a nimitta. Things are marked in this way too. And it becomes little more than just esoteric. Why has greed and nimitta? It's something strike the eye, and the eye sees something that brings up this experience of, oh, that's attractive, I want that. The thing doesn't say that. The object in itself doesn't say that. Just the sign acts as a signal, sign, signal. Yeah. Or it's disgusting. You may find a colour, horrible, glaring. Somebody might find it warm, vibrant. Same colour, different signal being given. And then so then this has to be understood, because this acts as the basis for a lot of volition. And what we're grabbing hold of is actually a mirage. So the mind produces the kind of waves a flag. It's an empty thing in itself. It's void. It's not the thing. It's just a trick, you could say, trick of perception. Or a conjuring of perception. And to broaden it, there can always be the signs of the positive signs. You see the Buddha, our teacher, the beloved, and so forth. Bring that to mind, a sense of inspiration occurs through that sign. Beloved friend, someone like that, you get a sense of the warmth. You can't really label it as the body shape or their mannerism, just something about it gives you that quick hit of warmth, delight, positive sign. And so we're steered by these. But the theme is you should get to the reality beneath it before before that occurs. You keep checking out, is this person reliable, steady, and then you kind of sense it's not just giddy infatuation or blind devotion or knee-jerk aversion. Somebody speech is stuttering and confused doesn't mean they're stupid. It just means their speech faculty is, has difficulties. It doesn't mean they are stupid or not to be listened to. Just they've got difficult speech habits. So you're trying to penetrate beneath those immediate impressions to something more valuable, because then you're really deepening your heart intelligently, and not just working on knee-jerk reactions, which unfortunately are very easy, automatic, because they're automatic. So we tend to go for the easy. And this is, of course, when you look at the big scale, this is where all the conflicts arise. We have this conflict in Israel and Palestine. Two sets of people who both have their fears, anxieties, grievances, pains, sorrows. It's the other one's fault, and they've got reason to say that. Basically, then the response to that is, well, let's kill each other then. That will sort it out. Sign of hatred, kill it. That will make it better. Hasn't worked yet. And what happens, you just sow deeper the bitterness, the hatred, the fear, the defensiveness gets another layer, cuts deeper and deeper and deeper. Think, now it's gone for generations. The future generations will carry that. Because we carry the sign gets passed down as we know. People, you have to go into details, the histories, what it takes to try to recuperate international hatred to something where reasonable coexistence can occur. Because in 1592 they did this. In 1849 they did that. And it's terrible. Yeah, it was. Horrible. Do we need to carry the sign? And then act upon it in that bitter, recriminating way. So we have to kind of lift from that, because it's an unskillful sign that precipitates unskillful, compulsive, because it's easy. It seems we say it's justified. They have the right to kill the other people. They call it defending yourself in international relationships. You never have any war of aggression. It's always defending yourself. We have the right to defend ourselves against, which basically means killing them. I don't think it makes much difference whether you're killed by an aggressor or a defender. You're still killed. And you perhaps by somebody you didn't know. And when it gets to the international thing, it's the women, the children who never did anything, and the civilians who never did anything, getting shot to pieces, embittered, grieving, hatred, resentment, fear, so on. You think more killing will do it. We'll sort that out. So through the sign B, we recognise that there's a lot of intense hatred, passion, fear, justifiable pain, absolutely. We need to lift from this. I know it's not easy, but if we don't, it's going to get worse. We need to see beings with need for security, beings with need for ease, beings. And we don't need the ideologies. They're not going to do anything useful. Whether you call it justice or right, it really doesn't do the job of resolving anything. Just pushes the can down the road for the next generation. So it goes on. People carry it. I remember Longstanding occasion I think this began probably back in the early 1980s in Cittaviveka. We had a man here who became a summonera. He was a bit of a wild card. I mean, those days we were all wild cards, really. Not a straight hand in the deck. But a few of us managed to kind of shape it up a bit. And so he was kind of fairly wild character. But he had a very, could also be very agreeable and intelligent mannerisms, and it was. But then they became a bhikkhu, something of a bhikkhu. And I think one of the other monks, who was only about 4 or 5 vassas, clearly didn't approve of this fellow because he was really doing some pretty outrageous stuff. I mean, let's not go into it, but certainly not beautiful conduct. So this junior bhikkhu, he carried this resentment. And for over 20 years, he went off to Thailand. Over 20 years, he wrote these letters of hatred to this monk, determining physical violence with obscene language. For over 20 years, would write these letters. They'd get passed on to me, and I'd go, God, it's difficult to read them. So I kind of just stored away. I've got a whole file of these letters, which I thought, just in case it's ever needed. Threatening physical violence. Over 20 years. So, what's happening? Every cell in their bodies had changed by that time. If we go through that 7-year thing, right, the body's changing their cells, the bodies have moved on. The people's characters have shifted and changed and so forth. Once the sign has remained embedded like a thorn in the heart around this festering poison that comes out. And the craziness of this is supposed to be in the holy life, where the aim is to acknowledge these and eradicate them or clear them out. But so it's quite possible to miss it altogether. Because maybe, I can do various things, I can get some samadhi, I can do this, that and the other. People do respect me, I can give talks, Part of you can carry on without getting into that piece, you just kind of push it off, this bypassing. Eventually this abusive monk he was declared persona non grata by Wat Pa Pong for his harsh, disrespectful, gross behaviour, and subsequently got thrown out of the Sangha through, parajika offences, defeat offences. So, very disturbing, because like I think what one person can do is a potential in all of us, including me. I haven't done that, but am I watchful? Am I looking out for where things start to fester or get stuck? Am I looking out for that and checking what's happening? The signs. This is obviously gross and painful and uncomfortable things to talk about in some respects, but it's also, they're not always intensely like that. We get much more moderate signs. Oh, that's my home. That's my home. Well, it's a building. And so the sign of self gets placed on things. Ownership. To things actually, that's not true. The sign of permanence gets placed on things. Our own bodies, on other people. She'll always be around, he'll always be around. You don't really believe it, and yet that kind of... On one level you don't, but on another level you act. We act as if that's the case. We start to take each other for granted, and another day, and then gone. Oh no. Shock, horror. So these are signs that are want us to handle with awareness and caution. The sign of permanence, the sign of selfhood. And the sign things should be utterly satisfying. Therefore, because they're not, somebody sent me a gift recently, and the makers of this little gift had sent a card saying, "We guarantee your complete, utter and unrelenting satisfaction." I got news for them. Unrelenting satisfaction. I'm not expecting it, so I'm not going to be disappointed, but thank you. I appreciate what you're trying to say, but I'll let you off. Can we be satisfactory perceptions to each other? When we disappoint, dismay, confuse, can we lift off that? Okay, another being, a being, energies, minds, just moving. When do these things get shaped into a person, the sign of a person? Now, these are the normal language we use, and it's helpful. But one wants to also say, okay, that's fine, but let's look into the reality of that, and so I'm not getting the emotional, compulsive bond to that sign. This too will change. This is passing. This is indeterminate, actually. It's neither attractive nor unattractive. It's just... It sounds kind of bleak, but actually it's just very allowing. If you want things to be attractive all the time, you're in for a tough ride. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean they're necessarily horrible. It just, then it frees up, doesn't it? Frees up the way I can be with that, relate to it, not planting something onto it, including other people, of course. Therefore, the response can be, well, whatever, no sign, be another being. That's reasonable. And warm-heartedness, another being. Understanding what beings are like, with their ups and downs, and something more wise and sympathetic can occur than just getting stuck on the sign. I can't, and basically I feel if I can't act in at least an equanimous response to beings, I've really got to look at what's happening, what I'm firming up, what I'm creating. I may not exactly be, fully, encouraged by that, but okay, it works for you, good. And the Buddha said, when you cultivate that, when that becomes apparent, then you have the capacity to teach. Otherwise you get, no, they don't understand. Oh no, they don't follow what I'm saying. Idiots, wasting my time. Or, oh great, I'm loved, they're fantastic, everything's a winner, fantastic. Just speak the truth, speak what you know, only speak what you know, with understanding and with kindness. At the right time, when asked to do so. It's enough. Now the people can judge for themselves. So this is where you protect, you guard yourself. Otherwise, particularly when we've invested a lot in people and then they have difficulties with others or gossip about us, we feel very betrayed, shocked, knocked around. And this thing happens. So always when you're experiencing that, any of that dissonance, it's really helpful, go visit. Just lift off the topic, just hang out, be with, establish different occasions with each other. So you don't have to go into that topic where there's a lot of heat or dissonance. Just, we all rejoice in virtue, we all rejoice in, let's be with that, and then we've established that, and maybe we can then unpick what the disagreement was about, or we can learn from each other. And this is the harmonious way to deal with differences which are inevitable. Conflict is to some degree, even it's subtle, is inevitable, but the resolution of it is always possible. Once we return, drop the signs, go to your own heart, what's skillful empathy with another. Something's going to work out. And then you think, okay, then that's enough, that's good enough. Not expecting things to be according to my perceptions, but I'd like to live with harmony, understanding, nothing under the carpet, nothing in the cupboard stored up. And don't quite agree with you, good luck, whatever. And there's room for that without bitterness. You should bear this in mind in training, in cultivating, and in fact in all relationships with others. This group, this doesn't really ring my chimes. Okay, may they be well. What I'm looking for. So the Buddha was very clear on this. In his own passing, he said, the Dhamma Vinaya as a teacher, I presented that, and going to pass away. So Ananda, his beloved attendant, who obviously served the Buddha for decades with utter integrity and generosity and so forth, was very upset by that. The Buddha's dying, he's dying. The Buddha said, do not. One of the most touching passages in the canon where Buddha's kind of holding on to a doorpost to hold himself up, and Ananda's holding on to a doorpost to hold himself up. He's so shattered, he's weeping, and the Buddha says, "Do not weep, do not wail. For a long time you've served with devotion and integrity and effort. For a long time you've done this. This is vast, beautiful things you've done, Ananda. Now, just clear your heart. It cannot be that that was been born does not pass. It has to be that which is born as past, comes to pass. Just work to purify your heart, the last remains of clinging." And it's very touching. The Buddha obviously sympathised, but giving that very sympathetic response, and then just steadying, and this is the way it is, and just holding it for him. And it said that when the Buddha himself passed, the Arahants were not grieving. Because, okay, the Buddha has passed, that which we relied upon, the teacher, the teachings, that which we relied upon has passed, but the sign of the teaching, the purity, the awakening remains. And this body has done what it does. The sign remains. Nothing has really changed radically. Conditions do what they do. And same with the Buddha, when he saw his two chief disciples had passed away. There's obviously some shock there, recognising the loss to the assembly, but it's saying there's no grief, no, didn't happen. It goes, what passed? Bodies passed, perceptions changed. Mm-hmm. Isn't that the way they're always doing that? And you carry the sign, a skillful sign. And so that the unskillful, the unhelpful, painful signs can be understood. The basis, when you get right down to it, clinging. Well, not a decision, just an instinctive reflex to hold something as mine, permanent, and innately satisfactory. And following that, but in search of that, as you probably recognise, that which should be permanent, satisfactory, self, mine, and there's a lot of movement has to go on to sustain that. What the world in general is doing is people running around trying to sustain the sign of permanent well-being. And doing kinds of things to sustain the sign of being permanently in control. Trying to sustain the sign of owning something. A lot of effort and energy has to go into that, otherwise it starts to... and then we feel shattered. It wasn't mine. That's gone. I've lost it. He wasn't mine. That's gone. I've lost it. Oh, no. The grief. So it's not about eradicating anything that's actually there. It's about removing an influence that causes immense suffering, distress, and unwholesomeness to occur. Because based upon that sign triggers volition. So we lived, and how does that? This is what is possible Yeah. And this goes on, you know, you can, I mean, I remember a while back, Mark always seemed to have problems with me. You know, he'd always seemed to misinterpret, and he'd say all kinds of things about me, about my back. I remember that when he was a lay person, he'd been on a retreat with me, with this on this meditation retreat, and you know, the sign is no talking, da 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 da. And so there's this other woman on the retreat who he takes a liking to, and obviously she takes a liking to him, so they start leaving little messages in each other's shoes, you know. It's a meditation retreat. And I'm giving this stuff about the ending of the world and so forth, the other way you do. This kind of high-minded stuff. So you're not doing it, you know, what's it? So I think it's at Amaravati, so you know, they ended up getting together, walking around the field together in the tea breaks and stuff. And eventually they decided we're gonna form. So this is about day 6 or something. They come and say, you know, we decided to take leave of the retreat because we want to be together. You know, day 6, 7 or whatever it was. I said, okay, well. So I just said, oh, well, this is where the world begins. You know, I've been talking about the retreat doing about the ending of the world, and well, this is where the world begins. And I looked a bit, okay, so nothing much more than that, but okay, fine, that's what you decided to do. That's the way it goes. So then later on, when I think this person came to see me, and I said, oh, we're getting married. So I said, oh, you're getting spliced, are you? Which means joined together. It's a kind of colloquial thing. And it turned out what he heard when I said that was, oh, pigs could fly. In other words, that's a total non-starter, useless point of view. And that's what he heard. I mean, my accent is an accent. My speech can be slurred, but he heard that because he already had established a sign of, I disapprove of what they're doing, I disapprove of him. So he actually heard something I didn't say. You know, that's what memory is. You don't remember the thing, you remember what you take of it. And that's coloured by the sign. And every time you go to that memory with that sign in mind, it reshapes it, reshapes it, reshapes it. Every time you go to that memory with that bitterness in mind, the bitterness shapes the memory to fit the bitterness. You know? When you think of it, how do you remember anything? Well, it just happens, doesn't it? Well, if your memory isn't that good, what do you first of all get to think? Oh yeah, that guy, he's really pleasant, warm-hearted, yeah, good guy. What was his name? I can't remember. What did he look like? Oh, sort of, can't remember that either. You know, sort of hair on top, feet and stuff. And warm-hearted, got a good chuckle. You remember signs, don't you? That's the first thing that comes. Then you begin to etch in the details around it. You remember the sign. I was warm-hearted, or always seemed very nervous. One particular feature leads the rest of the memory, and then the memory starts to form around that sign. And you can see in cases of deeply held bitterness how that sign forms other people to the point in which you can act with total violence towards people you've never even seen, because they carry the sign. And every time you go there, the irrational, completely contradictory idea comes that they're to blame. They weren't there. Doesn't matter. So watch out for these phenomena. And the reference in the Satipatthana Samyutta, which seems, in my opinion, to be the source of how the longer suttas were compiled, in the middle length and long discourses, and you can see there's quite a distinction between the middle length version and the long version. They've added a huge wad more material in the long version. So clearly, when these things are formulated, and they didn't mind adding more details if it seemed to fit, and it seems what's been happened in this process of formulating these discourses. And there are certain awkward bits out of that. But one of it is the whole section on Dhamma. Dhamma is the fourth foundation, Satipatthana. In the Samyutta, it's just said Dhammas, phenomena. That's it. And the other ones, they elaborate all the hindrances, bad phenomena, enlightenment factors, skillful phenomena, and they're all it's true. Not false, but I think some of the core theme of the Samyutta collection is notice how they dissolve, whether they're good or bad, how they atangamo. So it says, with the rising of attention crystallizes around something. Dhammas, phenomena start to gather around that. With the ceasing or subsiding of that action, remember attention's an action of focusing, when we soften the focus, the crystallized dhammas begin to atangamo. And atangamo is related to sunset. It's a term that's used to describe the setting of the sun. It means that not that it's kind of gone to the non-manifest. So it's different. There's a cessation of attention, the non-manifestation. Empty. Not defined, not formulated. If like something that had been crystalline into distinct crystalline patterns, released into something that's unformed, like, dissolving crystals, ice in water. That which was definitely shaped just becomes open fluid. Could be anything. And that's doesn't mean anything's really annihilated, but the shaping is released. Notice, when we get something in our minds, where our attention gathers around it. Contact, feeling, perception, that's that. Not good. And then that becomes quite solid, and you can remember it. What I remember at Cittaviveka is a lousy tea. The forest is gone. I remember the terrible tea or something like that, whatever your pet problem is. I remember about this bhikkhu is not, his integrity is but in the way he chanted. It could be that, when you get something that sticks. And it crystallizes, so that's what you carry. The rest of it disappears. That's the problem of attention. Doesn't mean don't be vigilant, heedful. It means be careful how your attention is forming and crystallizing things. In this little teaching, so Buddha said with the arising of Namarupa, the arising of Chitta, with the cessation of Namarupa is the atangamo, the disappearance, the non-manifestation of citta. So, not to get too technical, but the whole nama process is this very act of signifying, designating something as being something. Something is designated. You know. So we look around the hall. What was a tree has become a pillar. Does the wood know that? I don't think so. What was sand has become paving slabs. Sand didn't know about that. It's got, we designate it as such and shape it to fit that. You look in the forest, you can look at those trees and think, there's good timber there. You can actually start to designate them as timber. Or you can look and thinking, oh, it looks like it's got canker. If you're a horticulturalist or an arbor, or a tree specialist, or you can say, wow, wonderful tree to sit under, to meditate. Different designations, aren't they? What does the tree know? Do we ever ask the tree? Okay, take that off the agenda. What about people? How do we designate them? Useful guy, could be a good da-da-da-da-da, designate him as a cook or something or the other, shape him up as that. The rest of it doesn't matter. So this nama, and the Buddha says nama controls the world. The way those designations get taken to be the actuality, and that then volition occurs that keeps cementing that person or that into actuality, and then we keep acting upon it, and it becomes engraved. Like all Jews are, anti-Semitism, all Jews are, all, whatever the one you discriminate against is. I had a case recently of a friend of mine, his partner, she spent 10 years fighting against gender discrimination in pay in the university, where very obviously, very distinctly, all the women who were teachers never got promoted. The men who were got promoted. It's like clear as daylight, just because they've been designated. So then the citta gets activated around that designation. Citta produces volition. So it's fired up, it's activated. Now if that designation is released, it's just, who knows? Being, and even more than just perceptions arising and passing, citta doesn't get activated. And what feature does the citta have then? Hot, cold, just open. Open. Undesignated. The Buddha says you can't get any designation to describe that. It's out. When it's out, all you can say is, where's it gone? You can't say. It's just undesignated. Where did the ice go? When the heat turned up, where did it go? It didn't go anywhere. Well, I don't see it. Where did it go? Well, it's sort of, water's wet and sloshy and moves around. Ice is hard. They're not the same. And it becomes steam. Vapour. Where did it go? What happened to the ice? The designation was incorrect, or partial. So when it's not designated, there's that, we're looking at our stuff in our citta. Dhammas arising, passing, noticing where the jarring, the crystallization, the fascination, the pains, all occur. What's going on there? Penetrating. This is the disappointment. This is the attraction. This is the sense of gain. This is the sense of loss. Just looking into that carefully and sympathetically. You can be beyond this. Don't let this phase you. You can be beyond this. There's no way in that world that you can ever feel safe. In the world of gain and loss, it's impossible. It's never succeeded for anybody. In the world of arriving and ceasing, you're never going to find a stable place. But in the knowing of that, and the firming, and the clarity, and the unwavering, there's a release from that. And then this is what the Buddha is trying to encourage. And it's up to us to look carefully, look clearly, look deeply, develop the skills to at least cultivate the skillful signs, put aside the unskillful signs, cultivate the skillful signs, penetrate the base of clinging, and realize what the Buddha is trying to offer us as a path to deliverance.